Hi, welcome back to Everyday Behavior. This is the 5th video in our series this month. During this video, we're talking about coping strategies. So what exactly are coping strategies? We all use coping strategies, and most coping strategies are sensory-based. So my coping strategies are things like fidgeting with my ring, I shake my leg, I play with things in my hands, whether that's my hair tie on my wrist or my pen. So I'm often playing with things whenever I am sitting still. If I'm not sitting still, I'm often moving about. Or if I have the opportunity and I'm not talking or in the room with someone, I listen to music. In the mornings, I often run or exercise as a coping strategy. And so all of those are sensory-based strategies. They're auditory input, they're textile input, they are movement-based, or in some way, they involve some sort of sensory input. But so you can teach coping strategies to kids by helping them find things that are natural sensory things for them. Maybe that is listening to music in the background in your class or near their table, or allowing them to have headphones and listen to music themselves. Another coping strategy that you might find helpful or that your kids might find helpful are small fidget things that don't necessarily disrupt the environment. I'm not talking about the fidget spinners that were so disruptive, but being able to fidget with a pen or something in their hand. Blankets are very comforting. So maybe if a student is anxious in your class, can they cover up with a blanket underneath their table if it's not disruptive? Another thing that you can do to help students with coping strategies is allow them a time or place to engage in those coping strategies. So if their coping strategies are more disruptive or can't be done, can you schedule a time or place in which they can engage in those appropriate coping strategies? And if they're on the spectrum, and some of their coping strategies may be more stereotypic or stigmatizing, can you provide them an appropriate space that is more private or out of the view of the other kids in their class, where maybe they can engage in clapping and rocking or visually stimming on things, or pacing, or heavy jumping and sensory input. So a lot of times they're having to suppress that, and if you were to have to sit completely still, you would kind of get the jitters too. Sometimes kids with autism get the jitters a little faster, and so how can you provide them those opportunities to engage in those coping strategies at an appropriate time or place? Make sure you're not allowing escape-maintained behavior. But as we're looking at returning from COVID, we also want to be mindful of some coping strategies that may be helpful for those students that are experiencing more anxiety, such as crying, maybe increased headaches, or physical complaints about their tummy hurting. It is important to realize that anxiety does cause some physiological changes in the body as far as the release of cortisol, increased blood pressure, increased heart rate. Our lungs change, our stomach, our digestive system adjusts based on that anxiety and that fight or flight response. And so it is possible that they are truly experiencing headaches or tummy aches, as you also experience stomach discomfort when you're anxious. And so how can you provide them ways to access other appropriate replacement behaviors? So examples of this, if you have a child who's often crying or requesting to leave the room, you may provide them some sensory activities to engage in, but you can't say, hey, this is the coping strategy that you should use, because everybody's coping strategies look a little different. So they may have to try out a couple to figure out what strategy works best for them. So you may also want to look at, as you're working with coping strategies, that anxiety can present in different ways. So when we're anxious, we may be shorter, more aggressive, frustrated, easier, with mild triggers. And so if you're noticing that kids often have extreme responses to very mild triggers or minor infractions or correction, it may be due to an underlying anxiety. And so you may want to also look at those coping strategies for those kids as well. So other replacement behaviors that are not necessarily sensory based, but that you might want to work on, are sending a text or a picture to parents rather than leaving or calling home from school. And so how can you incorporate maybe sending an email about their day, maybe taking a selfie or taking a picture, doing something in the classroom that they can send home to the parents rather than going home? Can they calmly ask for a break to engage in those sensory activities or to engage in those coping strategies rather than going to the nurse's office or being sick? Can you set aside a 3 to 5 minute one-on-one worry time where maybe they can sit down with the counselor, the school nurse, you, or another school official to talk about and discuss their worries or fears? This also applies to parents. Can you set aside a little bit of worry time in the evening? Now, the biggest thing with worry time is if worries come up throughout the day, you have to say, hey, we'll talk about that during worry time. So you want to restrict those worries or delay that discussion of worries until that worry time. And then if they are constantly or repetitively asking to go to see the nurse or go to the office or go home or call home, can you send them to the office or the nurse for a 5-minute break to engage in those coping strategies before coming back to the classroom? Lastly, if you have a student, if you're a parent and you're struggling with school refusal, things that you can do both at home and at school is to have that consistent schedule that we talked about. Allow for 5-minute breaks if they're feeling anxious to kind of regroup and get their courage back up before they go back into the environment. Start small and work your way up. So rather than saying, hey, you've got to go to school all day today, if they have extreme anxiety, can you start with a brief exposure and work your way up, especially if they're not attending school at all at this point? You can also break the day up into micro routines or micro goals. So attending school, if they're coming home from school regularly early, can you work on, okay, here's what you earn if you attend school for 1 hour or up until X period. Here's what you can earn if you attend school up to lunch. Here's what you can earn if you attend school throughout the afternoon. And so having those levels or increasing goals throughout the day. Also, don't make incentives all or nothing. Don't make it so that they have to earn or they have to be successful with the whole day or everything in order to earn incentives. So break that up so that maybe if they're meeting some of their goals but not all of their goals, they can still earn something for the effort and the tolerance that they put forth. Another thing is we talked about pairing in a couple of videos and pairing the school with reinforcement, but also you want to look at, can you develop those relationships with a friend, a mentor, or a buddy that is in the classroom or in the school that they can see or kind of rely on for some additional coping strategies during the day. I hope all of this provides you with some ideas on how to address that angst that some of our kids may be facing coming back into the school year. And I hope that you can help some of those kids overcome maybe the fears or anxiety that they're having post-COVID. So if you like these videos, please subscribe to our channel below. You can also like or follow us on Facebook and Instagram, and visit our website at everydaybehaviors.com for additional resources. Thank you and have a great day.